So we were discussing the idea of making a tent, and the basic premise is that building a tent, a permanent tent, is asur from the Torah. Building a temporary tent is asur even b'drabanan. But what we did, what we are allowed to do, is to extend a temporary tent. That is allowed, or as we've seen, to kind of continue something that is basically already there. So that's basically been the things that we've been talking about. So the next halacha is an interesting one. He says, Kiseh ha'asoi prakim, a chair that's made of different parts. And when you want to sit on it, you open it up and the leather or the seat stretches out. And when you want to take it away, you close it up and the leather kind of folds up. So I'm getting feedback, so I'm just going to mute you. Sorry. So you're allowed to open it on Shabbat, even though underneath that chair there is some level of cover. This is not considered making a tent. He's not really doing anything. Since they basically exist before the holiday, therefore they're going to kind of let you open it up. He says so too, which you'll see sometimes done, a chuppah. And we don't see too many weddings done, and even the way that we do weddings, it's not really the chuppah the way that you see with the Ashkenazim. But I'll tell you where we do see the chuppah that we use, and you see it used on Shabbat, and that is on a Sefer Torah. When you see the way they do a Hachnasat Sefer Torah, so they tend to have a chuppah, right? And what's the chuppah? It's 4 poles and a tapestry on the top that they stand under. He says, he says the thing that you need to watch out for is that the chuppah has to have been tied together from before Shabbat, right? Meaning you shouldn't just have a tapestry and then connect 4 poles to it. The poles should be connected to the tapestry beforehand. It could be rolled up and then you just extend it out. It says, but you shouldn't first connect the poles to the tapestry on Shabbat. And again, that kind of dictates the same type of thing. So what we're talking about here is a folding chair. What we're talking about is, I don't know if you've seen like a lot of, for those sporting events, you have like that chair that fits into a knapsack, or a beach chair where it tends to fold into a case or a container. And basically all you're doing is taking a piece of cloth and stretching it out to open it or close it. Even though that's kind of like a tent because it's a tent underneath, it's not considered a tent in the sense that it's already set up before, and therefore it's not such a problem. Okay. Mutar liftoch kiseh noach mita v'shulchan hamitkapelim v'chen lul shel tinokot kevan sheregilim bekach v'chen mutar lekapelam. So he says, so therefore, he says, since it's regular to have a reclining chair or a folding table or a playpen for children, since these things pack and unpack rather easily, they're done all the time, you're allowed to fold them and unfold them. Aval asur lechaber gagon lehagaga b'fnei hashemesh elam ken haya hagagon mechubar lekiseh hanoach meba'od yom she'az mutar lefotcho lesogro. He says to set up a cover for the chair, that is only allowed if you did it beforehand. But I mean, it was connected beforehand. But if it wasn't connected beforehand, you can't do that. So you'll see very often that some of these chairs have some kind of covering. So he's basically saying if the covering existed beforehand and was connected beforehand, then you could use it. But if it wasn't connected beforehand, then you cannot. Okay, now is the one that's the toughest for people to hold on to, but it's a known thing. Asur liftoch metriya ulenosah la b'shabbat lagem b'fnei geshamim. A person may not open up an umbrella and to carry it on Shabbat to protect him from the rain. And even if the umbrella was open from before Shabbat, he's not allowed to carry it on Shabbat. He says, especially if there's no eruv, there's not an opinion that would say you can carry an eruv without an eruv. He says, but even with an eruv, it's considered muktzeh. It's considered muktzeh. It's not for use, and therefore umbrellas are a no-go. So no using an umbrella. It says, but shimshiyat gina tiku'a bekarka me'erev Shabbat yesh la kela potcha lo sogra b'Shabbat yesh katav shen potcha lo sogra b'Shabbat. It says, but a sunshade, or what we would call a garden umbrella or something like that, that you are allowed to open. Again, what we said in the initial class on this topic, we should try and keep as well. A sunshade, we should try and have it a little bit open. If there could be a tefach open, which is not that much. A tefach is the width of a handbreadth. So you're talking about maybe 4 inches, 5 inches. So if you could have the umbrella opened a little bit before and not closed all the way below that, then that's fine. We're talking about not an umbrella and a rain umbrella. I'm talking about the ones that are usually in the backyard, on the front porch, by the pool, or something of that nature. Those umbrellas can be opened because they're set and they're in place and they're there from before Shabbat. It's best if we could have them slightly opened from before, and if we're closing them, to leave them slightly closed. So that's it's a little bit not intuitive, because we do say you can't open an umbrella, right? You can't open the regular umbrella, but this is not a regular umbrella. This is something that's already set from before, and especially since if you left it open somewhat beforehand, that it allows you to leave it. Okay. Any questions? Yes, I was going to say, any questions on umbrellas?
If you're at the beach and your umbrella is not closed, it's not stationary, right? Because you got to set it up.
Right. Yeah, the umbrella by the beach is a little bit more problematic, because it seems to be that umbrella is really more of the style of the previous one. There's another problem with the beach, which is it's unlikely to be an eruv, because the beach, it's hard to have an eruv around the beach, because most of the eruvs don't cover the beaches. The reason being, the eruvs are generally, there needs to be a border, and the beaches don't have those borders. Usually the border comes before the beach. So either they use the seawall or a fence or poles, but they don't stick the poles in the ocean. So the beach is usually a problem for a lot of reasons. So I'm going to say that the beach umbrella on Shabbat has multiple issues, and probably we gotta not use the beach umbrella on Shabbat. And even the beach chair on Shabbat, we have to wonder if we could, or towel even, how do we get the beach chair or towel there? If it exists already, right? If you have a friend that lives on the beach, and he could leave stuff there and nothing will happen to it or something like that. Okay, there's such things, but to walk to for example, to Coney Island, right? From here, which is nice, and we like to do it, and there's no problem to walk there, but and you could carry things to a certain point to Coney Island, but the boardwalk is basically the boundary, right? You can't go and take things onto the beach. So we do have to be careful when we're walking on Shabbat, that if we're carrying something, which we are allowed to carry in our area because we have an eruv, we know where that eruv ends, and that eruv ends at the boardwalk. So to go off the boardwalk in the direction of the beach would be a problem. So that would, I think that answers the question.
Rabbi, what about at a hotel? Can a goy do it for you?
So now we're talking about a different concept. So, look, what we're talking about is d'Rabbanan, because it's temporary, right? So when the goy does it, it's to d'Rabbanan. So really you have to ask yourself, is it for the sake of a mitzvah? if you could categorize it as for the sake of a mitzvah, then it's not a problem, right? In other words, let's say we were talking about the goy was setting up in that area. By the way, I'm not talking about the eruv part. I'm assuming there's an eruv there, right? At the hotel, right? Which there probably there's some challenges.
So Passover trip.
Right. I don't know how it works on the Passover trip, but assuming there's a goy so let me deal with opening the umbrella, and then we'll talk about the carrying. Assuming there's an eruv, for the goy to do it, if you have a reason that it's a mitzvah, so like for example, let's say that's where the meal is, right? And in order to protect that the meal is good and so on, I guess we could say that. To sit on the beach, a little harder to classify that as a mitzvah, honestly. So not so easy to say yes to that. Plus, for sure, I mean, look, I haven't been at the beach on a holiday trip, so I can't say. But on the holiday, it's not a problem for carrying because the holiday you're allowed to carry. But on Shabbat, I would think the beach is very similar to our beach in that it's hard to create an eruv there. It's hard to imagine that an eruv is set up there. So I think the carrying to the beach is a significant problem. So I need more details, but I'd worry about the Shabbat part and the carrying and setting things up and whether or not you can get to enough drabanans and mitzvot in order to make it okay. Possible, but it's possible not. So I would need more details, and I guess when we get to the specifics of eruv and carrying and so on, which he is going to get to, we could talk further about it. But definitely, I think one of the thank God when we live in Brooklyn, if you're in the city, you're in Deal, you're in Florida, which are most of the places that we would be on a given Shabbat. So you're in a good place because usually there's an eruv in those places, and even other places that I've been. There's a lot of places that have eruvs. It's not hard to find a place with an eruv anymore. In fact, most major cities today are going to have eruv. Certainly Israel, Jerusalem, and so on. A lot of the major cities are going to have eruvs. So guys, we're beginning minyan at 8 o'clock today, just letting everyone know. So there's a lot of places that have eruv. That's great. Where was I at? But the hardest place to find an eruv is going to be at a beach. A beach is a very difficult place to create an eruv because what makes an eruv is the boundary, and it's hard to create that boundary on the beach. You could create it on sections of a beach, but usually that's going to be the part of the beach which is less desirable. It's not on the water and so on. So it becomes a very complicated thing. Let me get one more halacha in. Yes.
If the beach belongs to the hotel, is it considered Bereshut Yahid?
It's a good question. Is that considered a Reshut Yahid if the hotel owns it? So first of all, beaches usually are not owned by the hotel. They usually own only the section up to a certain point. They do not own the beach. There's a certain amount that they can, and there's a certain amount that they can't. Much like private people in deal. So it's a question. But if they own the beach, then it probably becomes less of a problem for that. So that I guess that would be something that can be helpful if they own the beach. The question is, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about it actually, because it still needs to be bordered in somehow, and how you create that border on a beach is not so simple or easy. So I'm not so sure.
So by the pool, it's much easier.
The pool is much easier, right? The pool is really, the pool is like inside. Generally almost any pool has a fence around it, and the fence is usually more than sufficient to be an eruv fence. So the pool is the least problem. You know, I don't say the least, but it's much less of a problem than the beach. Much less of a problem than the beach.
Rabbi,
But,
Bradley Beach has an eruv around the whole town, including the boardwalk, but not the beach. It does not include
again,
the
it
beach.
can't be. It's very
Right.
hard for it to be the beach. It's the same. I mean, it's not unique to Bradley Beach. It's true in Deal. It's true in Brooklyn. It's true anywhere that I know of. You know, Jerusalem's beach certainly doesn't cover it either. But there's no. It's hard to create an eruv around the beach because you'd have to fence in the beach, which you can't. That's the whole point of the beach, is that you don't have that fence. So I don't see how you would. I think it becomes a problem. I think it becomes a problem. The only thing that is potential is like there's certain people that they own a section of the beach, but it's generally not the section of the water, and then they fence that in. You know, so you know, if someone that lives along the water, you know, is able to fence in a section of the beach, you know, I've seen someone I know in Deal has like they have a house on the beach, and they have above the beach they have a private area that's a beach. Like they built a certain sandy whatever area that's above. That is fine, but the rest is not. The rest is not. So it becomes a problem. Anyway, we're going to stop here. We'll continue with this tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about an interesting aspect of building a tent. It's not tomorrow. We'll do this Monday. And Monday we're going to do this at 7:45. The class is going to be at 7:45 on Monday, and there's going to be on Monday 2 minyanim. We're gonna try something next week.